Welcome to this episode of In Conversation with Reta Ihmail. Today's episode includes subject matter relating to sexual abuse and suicide. I sat down with local author Erik D'Haene, who just released his second memoir called No One Wants to Read That You're Happy. It's a book dedicated to his younger brother who died from an overdose. The memoir reveals some of the stories from D'Haene's survival journey in the aftermath of sexual abuse that he endured for nearly a decade by his own father. Now, despite everything that D'Haene has been through, he maintains a very positive outlook on life and hopes that his story will help others navigate the aftermath of trauma. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for new episodes dropping bi-weekly.
This is In Conversation with Reta Ihmail, a CTV London podcast. Now, here's your host, Reta Ihmail.
Welcome to this episode of In Conversation with Reta Ihmail. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Erik D'Haene. He is a local author here in London who's written 2 books. And also something very important about Donald, he is a sexual assault survivor who's been telling his story for many years. Thank you so much for joining us, Donald. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and for that introduction, because I can't stand it when someone calls me a media personality. I never leave home. I don't get out anymore, so I'm not. I am what you said, author.
You are an author, but you are incredible because you've been speaking about your experience for so long, and people have gotten used to seeing you in a number of platforms, and you have a big social following as well.
Definitely.
I think that's where it comes from.
Oh, I know. But I feel like there's nothing I haven't done that I say no to. Like if someone asks when you want experience, I should do a TED Talk on this. If to become an author, people want to become an author without writing. But my first writing was when I was a kid. I didn't know I was going to write a book. I've always written, and then I kept a diary, and then I wrote columns. So it is a natural progression for a writer if you just keep writing.
I love that because I've always wanted to write a book, and one day I'll get to it. But and ironically, I write for a living,
You do,
and I've been in this news industry for about 20 years. So it's just it feels like such a grand thing. So you've done it twice now, which is incredible, and we're going to get to both of your books. But first, I want to start off by just getting to know you. Let's talk a little bit about your upbringing. Were you born here in London?
I was born in St. Thomas. And we always lived in the rural areas surrounding London. Didn't end up in London until I was an adult. So lived in the country always. Like when you ride the bus, you're the last person on and picked up because it's an hour drive.
Oh.
And the weird thing about it, I'm a reader and I got motion sickness, so I could never do homework on the bus.
I'm a reader who gets motion sickness too.
God, you know
I
what I
can't
mean?
look down while we're driving or in the car.
Yeah, so when I read a map, I dart it. I go, okay, there.
Wouldn't it have been wonderful to have podcasts available back then, and we could listen to them on the way home?
Definitely.
So from St. Thomas originally, now you're living here in London. Your childhood, unfortunately, wasn't the greatest. You experienced a lot of trauma. Let's get into some of that, if you don't mind.
So what happens is every child who experiences trauma experiences it differently, and even in my family. So I, of the 4 kids, dealt with it this way, leaving myself. So I became a different person, different Donald. So the other Donald experienced abuse. So that was the way I dealt with it. And my siblings, it was always real to them, right? So we all have dealt with it such a different way. And I also have to say that we all also had a happy childhood because we had an amazing mother. So we had 2 lives. We feel so fortunate that we had an amazing mother. That's how we view our life. We don't do the other. We are so lucky that we had a mother who loved us and unconditionally.
I'm not going to lie, I'm surprised to hear you say that you had a wonderful childhood because I've read your story, and it's difficult to put the 2 together. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I love this as the opening to why. My first book is called Father's Touch because it was our father that abused us. The second one is No One Wants to Read That You're Happy. And how that happened was I landed the first book with a cliffhanger, and I didn't want to write another book. And then our beloved younger brother died. And I was so depressed. I couldn't stop crying. And the book saved me. That's what saved me. I had to write it for him, dedicated to him. So when I first told the first person, my partner, that I was going to write a book, he said, "No, you're not." And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "I can see why people want to read you were abused, but no one wants to read that you're happy." I said, "Are you kidding? The first book's the happy one." And why? Because the first book is the first 20 years of my life, and I had faith. Faith is the most important thing when you're going through this. So why can I say that I had a happy childhood? Because I believed in a higher power who cared no matter what, as I believed in my mother. In the second book, I tell the journey of losing faith, which is the worst moment of my life, worse than abuse. So, and then the thing about the second book is the journey of it. People assume, if it's a survivor book, that it's, boohoo stories. It is the truth. And what I did to honor my brother, I had to tell a different kind of truth, an absolute going into the depression, the multiple personality aspect of my surviving, to be able to tell his story. And part of that is a lot of fun times, because if you split, you are able to function completely without anyone knowing. And I remember my chiropractor said to me, he almost fell off his chair when he read the first book, because he always can tell when someone's abused. He could not tell I was abused. And it is, so people, also this works a flip way. I don't represent all survivors. I only represent myself, because you look at me and you go, like, I'm a poster guy for survivors. No, I'm not. I represent one person. There are so many different versions of ourselves, and all of those choices in surviving are important.
I'm actually so proud of you, because that is incredible to be able to take an experience and separate that experience from the rest of your life, right? That's a way to kind of put it. It doesn't define the rest of your life. You didn't allow that.
Well, what's interesting is I grew up, I was, of us 4 kids, the original 4 kids, I was the quietest, and my siblings were much more extroverted, and I'm the least likely person to have written the books, because I didn't want to talk about the story. I don't even like talking about it. And I think that that's probably why I was the perfect person, because I was quiet and watched. I took in the stories. And one of my gifts now is that I can have a conversation, and I know I don't miss anything. So I can multitask at the same time. And it's a gift when you're a writer, storyteller. And I feel that this book that's what I'm doing. I'm telling stories.
Now, the first book, A Father's Touch, what was that about, without giving too much away?
Right. That is the first 20 years of my life. I'm totally a believer. And in our case, it was a Jehovah's Witness faith. And people like to nitpick about faiths. And I don't believe the faith is the point of the story, in the sense of criticizing a faith. A abuser uses a faith and hides behind it. And faith gets blamed for the things that go wrong, when actually it has nothing to do. The faith can be a lifesaver. Mm-hmm. So the first book is about the journey of just existing. We never talked about being abused. We went to school, we did all those things, and accidentally, a lot of strange coincidences happened that I disclosed the abuse, because my sister okayed us talking. Then we went for therapy. Then we went to court. We got a conviction, and all of that. People tell survivors, this is what you should do. Stop telling survivors what they should do, because we did all the right things and everything went wrong. And so the second book tells what happens after our success, supposed public success of getting a conviction. Having to live with the damages in our individual ways is what the second book is about. It's about how we all so differently coped and didn't.
So your father sexually assaulted yourself from the age of 4 to 12.
Yeah, 4 to 15.
To 15. And you have 3 other siblings.
All abused. And then I have other siblings.
By your father as well.
And this is the thing, people believe that and the judge believed that his lawyer presented that he had changed, and he didn't need therapy. We needed therapy, but he didn't need therapy.
Did he ever admit to it in court?
He admitted he did it in a way that he did it in a plea bargaining way. And that way you avoid testimony either way. Okay, so then he went on to marry 4 more times, and he abused more of his new children.
And I read that he moved away.
Yes.
So you haven't been in contact with
I have never been in contact since I was 15. No. But the thing about the important point about the story is people think the conviction ends the story. He served his time, found a new wife and new children to abuse.
That's alarming.
It is alarming, but I'm more focused on the survivor victims, in that I can't tell you how many times we're told how we're supposed to feel, and stop telling a victim to do this. How about giving options? And I always say the best option is recommending therapy, in which they can discover a strength to be able to make choices. But when someone doesn't have a network of support and they're making choices like charging, there's no support system. And it's a very dangerous road to take if things don't work out the way you want.
So I had a conversation with Jennifer Dunn from the London Abused Women's Centre, and they deal with everybody, not just women. And she mentioned something that's very important. A survivor has to want to come and talk and take action on their own. It is nobody else's job or place to do that for them.
We're totally in sync.
Yes.
That's exactly
This sounds
right.
like what you were saying, right?
Yes, right. First of all, believe them. That's the first step, is believing them. And the second thing is, people don't want to get involved often. 911 people report abuse. I'm telling you a story where there's so many people who knew, who didn't do anything and didn't want to do anything. And it went on and on and on. And so many of those future victims could have been prevented had people believed in the first situation.
And this happened to you a very long time ago, over 40 years?
Yeah, for me, it was from 65 to 76, something like that.
And unfortunately, back then, it was very, very minimal that was done, even when you tried to speak out. We've come a long way now. Could you talk a little bit about that? Like, if somebody might be going through something similar that you went through, are you finding that today there's a lot more resources?
Back then, we didn't even talk about being gay. I mean, let alone, no one would disclose their abuse, right? We were like guinea pigs. And that's a guinea pig is an interesting thing. And I mean that in a positive way, in that my example could teach people something. So the difference today is, like you say, everyone's talking about this, but the situation is the same in this. Even though it's so common, everyone knows that there's so much exposure, you still can be sensationalized, your story can be exploited, and you might not get the results that you're looking for. So you might still have the same feelings that we had 40 years ago. So I feel like education is the answer. Like, and educate yourself. You can't rely, you only can rely on yourself. No one can save you.
Do you find that, when you told your story and you went public with everything and throughout your life, because people read about it or get to know you, they come to you because they could relate to you and they don't feel discouraged, as opposed to going to like some sort of authority and speaking about it?
They feel like they can talk to you. And that's so true. That's a really true thing. And that is an experience that my family always went through. I would say that what we focus on, one of the reviewers of my book said, I cannot believe how you are so positive about faith after all you went through. And then there's so many things like that, like why aren't you bitter? And we had this amazing mother who never complained, who loved us no matter what. And that is and had faith till she died. So that is a superpower. She gave us a superpower, and you can't discount it.
No. You talk a lot about your mother, and you mentioned that, when you went to her at one point in your life and she knew about it, but I don't hear resentment in your voice. I don't hear resentment in the way you speak about her. Why is that?
Because she was the fifth victim of the first set. Because he owned her, he abused her psychologically in every other way. So how could we judge her? You're talking about, in many ways, we became the adults. And the psychobabble is, oh, that's not fair. Life isn't fair. Life is never fair. You make what you can. And so we protected our mother. We took her out. That's a positive story. We did that when I was 15. Amen to that.
So you removed her from the situation.
And ourselves.
That's incredible.
We would never leave her with him, right? So I feel like, it takes a village. Sometimes the village is yourself and your siblings. And you make your own little community and you save yourself. But you know what? We look outside the box. The world is full of so many suffering and horrific experiences. I don't go around going, poor me, oh, boo-hoo. No, I feel outside the box. I look outside the box and I go, I'm lucky. I had good things. I have my health. I had a great mother and I have great siblings. That's how I do it. We do not do the alternate dialogue.
Oftentimes people who go through something traumatic, as you said, they victimize themselves, and rightfully so for a lot of people, but being able to change the conversation and change people's outlook on how you're living your life is really neat that you've been able to do that. How have you managed to get from all the things that you went through to a positive, happy place in your life with your partner here?
Therapy, love, animals, experiencing how they need you, and how it's just an amazing thing. And then I'm lucky. I've been loved. I've had 3 amazing boyfriends, and I'm now 27 years with Morris. I feel so lucky. Now, that's the positive. I have to say that the thing that breaks my heart is my brother, who had the opposite experience. Because I left myself, I escaped my abuse. Everything was raw to him. He never could escape it. That's why it was drugs. He was homeless. Everything was self-destruction because he couldn't handle it. And one of the points of my book, and what I'm all about now, the reason I'm only doing this is for him, to show people that the homeless, displaced person is my brother. A brother who was artistic, brilliant, talented, tortured. We have to stop judging these people as, 6 degrees separates us. I'm an example of that. Him and I could have been in each other's shoes. And I feel that the heroes of my story are my brother and my mother. So does my siblings do too. Not us. The people who don't make it, we should be thinking about and studying and why. And so I want my story to open people's hearts to being kinder to people who aren't as lucky as we are.
Oftentimes we're so quick to judge, especially the vulnerable community. And in the last few years, with everything that happened after the pandemic and where we are in the climate here in London, I've heard it so many times from so many people, like, why are you giving, the homeless population so much attention in the media? Why? And I've done stories, and I've spoken to these folks, and I've spoken to people who help these folks. And something people don't understand is every life is worth saving.
Yes.
It doesn't mean their life is less valuable than yours. And
Right.
when people stop thinking of it that way, I think there'll be more resources to help them and to help people like your brother, who it was a substance abuse because he had so much trauma. So it was mental, physical, everything. It just a series of events that unfortunately led to his death.
I love what you said, because part of the thing that people don't understand is the end result is of years of self-abuse. After you are on the street and taking all these drugs and you're abused with prostitution, whatever ways, you do damage to your system, to your psyche, to your mind. They need to be saved. We need to get them off the street.
Yeah, we absolutely do. Now, you're not just an author. You've done so much more. I read that you've acted, and you've done some really cool things. Let's talk about the other Donald who does. I mean, it's all along the creative side of yourself. So
when I was first interviewed, and I write this about in the book, when I was 41 years ago, I had never had my photo taken outside of a family, and I didn't think of it. And after we did it, it aired on TV, and one of the women said, you are photogenic. You could do something. And it was like a light bulb that went off. I wasn't someone who went to theater. I was like, oh, that's something new. And then I just experimented slowly. I talk about the journey of experimenting when I first did drag, which I didn't know I could do drag, and then I auditioned for theater, and I was so nervous. I wasn't someone who wanted to do an acting or be on stage. It's just sort of like, I'm good at it. I just sort of like, I come alive when there's a camera.
It only takes that one person to give you either like, oh, that light bulb moment, or to give you the courage to do something like that. Because oftentimes as kids are like, go to school, do this, do that, but we're not all meant to be scholars.
This is what I love. I talk to my partner about this all the time. I couldn't count how many times I've been told I can't do anything. I was told I can't act, I can't write, I can't do this, I can do this. And I'm like, again, the superpower for mom. Oh, really? Well, I'll show you. And also, maybe I can't. but why would you tell me this so that I wouldn't try? So one of the things I want to talk to educators about, and parents, and all of us, everything doesn't have to be amazing for you to try something. It's the effort and the beauty that you create from your soul. We think of gifts, when you give friends to gifts. A bought gift doesn't mean as much something as a made gift.
Thoughtful.
So being creative, never discount individuality and imperfection. Actually, I love imperfection. I don't strive to be perfect. I love being imperfect.
Yeah, never let somebody hold you down, especially if it's something outside the box.
Right. Yeah.
And now, what is your favorite thing to do out of all of the different?
Singing.
Yeah, you sing.
I love singing more than anything, and it is because And I was just in a show with this amazing Brian Radcliffe, musical director, my favorite ever, after 30 years in theater, and what he did was, he was just interested in me and my voice, not pretending to be someone else, or he just brought out the real me. It took 30 years to find that. This is what I love about singing. Singing, if you can communicate a feeling, a real feeling, it doesn't have to be a perfect sound. The point is you're communicating.
Now, do you also do public speaking engagements?
I do. First book, I was flown to New York and speak at an event, and it was just natural. I don't get nervous for it. I don't get nervous for things like that. I get more nervous for, tying a tie, which I can't do. Setting up a computer, I'm not good at those things, but I'm not nervous about communicating with people and strangers. I love people. And also, I have to tell you that one of the things I wanted to talk about is there's so many sad stories that happen to us where I was dumped by friends for a boyfriend, or this or that, or religion, or whatever. And I have been adopted by the world. I meet people who take me on, and this is the thing. I love that. You love that you could feel isolated in the world and loved at the same time. Isn't that a beautiful thing?
I love that phrase, adopted by the world. I'm going to use that.
That's good.
Now, in terms of what you've been through, to any listener who might find themselves in a situation like yours, abuse of any form, what would you say to them?
I'm so glad you asked that, because there are so many things. First of all, it's always important. Never discount your experience. Never qualify it like apple and oranges, like, oh, well, I didn't go through that much, so you did. No. Every experience is important, and how you feel is important. And find someone who will listen to you and believe you. And know that some will be the wrong people. Don't quit. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes you go to the wrong person and they say the wrong thing, and then you just shut down. But if you have your car breaks down and you have a bad mechanic, you don't stop. You go to a mechanic that will fix your car. You must keep going. You must keep continuing and finding the resources that you need. That being said, I also believe we must believe more. We must believe when people tell us their stories, because why would you make it up? Like, one time when I moved to our first public case 40 years ago, and I moved to another city, and someone said, it must be great feeling like a star. And I go, you want to trade places? Do you want to be you so you can have this moment?
That's unbelievable.
And I see, these are the kind of stories that when you're me, it's like, well, that's interesting. That might go in a book, but doesn't hurt my feelings, because I'm like, that reveals you
Says
more
something
than me.
about you,
Right.
for sure.
So know that when you do the path, if you're a survivor of any kind, people are going to say the wrong thing, but some people are going to say the right thing. And always gravitate to the positive, the true, the loving, the believer.
That's a really good message. And it seems like and sounds like that's what you've done. You've gravitated to all the positive things that have happened in your life, despite all the trauma and horrible things that you might have experienced as a child. Now, in your current day, other than writing two novels, two memoirs, what are you doing? What is your day-to-day job?
Okay, I'm a personal support worker for about 15 years, and I love doing that.
You're helping other people, and
Right.
You've been helping people for decades now.
And they've been helping me.
That is, again, so positive. I love that so much. You are fun.
One of the things I want to tell them, we are a multitude of colors. We are a rainbow of things. We're not just one part of a story. And so no one wants to read that you're happy. Please read my book.
Yes. Father's Touch, and no one wants to read that you're happy.
Available on Amazon.
Perfect.
Canada.ca and around the world on .com.
Thank you so much for your time, Donald. You've been incredible.
Thank you so much, Rita. Appreciate it.
To hear more episodes, get the latest stories, and watch our most recent newscast,